I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. On the program, how much does the environment influence your daily decisions?
A lot.
Climate change is a long-term effect.
Recycling is a big part that my family and I are in.
I actually don't drive a car because I think that's the best way to help the environment.
But first, as we move into summer and higher temperatures, we may have to add higher prices to the mix. With inflation at levels we haven't seen in decades, Canadians are now digging deeper in their pockets to pay more for the bare essentials. And many Canadians are forced to adjust how much they spend. We took to the streets to ask Canadians about how paying more for everyday goods and services has altered the way people manage their money. Our question: in what ways has high inflation altered your life?
It's made shopping at the grocery store much more expensive. There's virtually no sales anymore. Everything is full price, and the full price has increased from what it used to be.
I'm actually new to Canada, and I've only been here for about a month, but I've noticed the prices are about 4 times higher than what I'm used to paying.
And where's that?
Taiwan.
Taiwan, okay. Yeah, so how does that change your life?
So, I mean, usually you go to budget, say, take out $50, but we just had lunch and it was $53. But usually $50 would get us dinner, give us a snack, and we'd buy some clothes too. Now it's just straight lunch.
Absolutely. Well, especially being a first-time home buyer, our savings has gone much down comparatively. What I saved in 2019 and 2020, and coming back to 2022 after pandemic, barely we could save anything anymore. So yeah, inflation has affected us. Our grocery budget has widened up, while our increment in our job salaries has not been able to keep up with inflation. So yeah, absolutely,
Basically, it's just affected my groceries. Thankfully, I own my home, so that part of it hasn't affected anything, but groceries have gone up, basically.
Yeah. No home costs gone up at all?
Not, thankfully not, and I got in with low interest rates, so when I have to renew, that'll be probably an issue, but at that time, hopefully, there's a little more equity or something, so that helps.
It's a little scary to think how it's gone up, and being retired and on fixed income, you kind of wonder what the future is going to hold.
It definitely has, in a sense, because especially with gas prices going up, it's very hard to kind of get around nowadays. So it's pretty much I walk a lot now, carpooling, biking. It's nice to get the physical activity in, but it's just definitely with how much things have gone up, it's hard to kind of live the normal lifestyle that I've been used to.
Oh, well, I mean, we try to make good choices with food and riding bikes instead of driving and doing what we can.
Well, it hasn't really affected me yet. I mean, I'm retired, so I don't have to worry about, work, and it's especially in the last 2 years of pandemic, I didn't have to struggle with being able to go to work or working from home, which had its own difficulties. The cost of living, of course, is going up. Prices of everything is going up, but I'm so far able to maintain myself in this time and enjoying life.
Gas, that's why I got this electric bike. I find gas is way too high right now, and it's ridiculous. It's pretty bad when people have to go where the food is ridiculous right now. Like I went to the store, and I think I picked up a roast, and I think it was like $3 or $4 more than what I'd normally pay for a roast. But I'd say the bigger killer for me would be the gas. That's why I use my e-bike. I go to work all the time, back and forth with it.
I have a lot less exposable income. I'm on a fixed income. I'm a senior, and I filled up with gas the other day. 35 gallons came to $75. I went to the grocery store and I bought a few staples, and it ended up being just $89. And I got, I think, 1.4 increase for the rate of inflation on my CPP or OAS. It doesn't cover it.
High inflation. Well, my wife and I are retired, and we feel fortunate that it hasn't impacted us in a big way. Obviously, we're paying more for things. We can choose, and we do choose, to spend less and spend differently on items that maybe we might not have before. But for the most part, without a mortgage and debt, I think those are some big issues that affect a lot of people.
I'm from Victoria, so it's virtually impossible to live on your own. So I've even moved out a couple times and had to move back, and without the support of my parents, I don't know how I would do it on myself. Minimum wage jobs. I mean, I know that the wage has gone up, but then the cost of living has gone up so much more. It's honestly almost unlivable. And then university fees alone. Like, if you actually look through the fees, then you'll see, what am I actually paying for? And so even if you do move out on your own, then yeah, the gas, the food, everything is just like so inflated. I don't know how to make it out on my own. It's really hard.
I'm lucky. It's not really impacting me that much. I'm retired. I have an index pension, so lucky that way. I guess maybe I'm doing a few things different. Bit more resourceful on how I'm eating out of my freezer. How's that? All the stuff that I've had sitting in my freezer for a year, it's coming out and I'm eating it now.
Canada has been experiencing a profound shortage of family doctors right across the country for quite some time now, and the problem doesn't seem to be getting any better. For medical school graduates, many are opting out of practicing family medicine because of the high burnout rate associated with such a big responsibility. Fewer doctors also means reduced access to care for those who need it most. So we took to the streets to ask people what ideas they have to fix this problem. Our question: how could we remedy doctor shortages in less populated areas?
The conditions are such that doctors and medical staff may be looking elsewhere. So incentive for these places that need medical attention, medical staff, incentive for medical professional people to want to go and help.
What kinds of incentives do you think?
Well, money is always a factor, but conditions too. I mean, some of these places might not have, all the amenities of the city, or anyway, that kind of thing should be looked at.
I feel like they should kind of be looking at the areas in the country, in our cities and provinces, seeing which part needs the most help and trying to accommodate to them more specifically instead of kind of turning a blind eye.
I think we're kind of at a stalemate as far as physicians go, even in populated areas. It's sometimes difficult to get a new physician if yours retires or leaves.
How could we fix that, do you think? Could the government do anything?
I don't think so. I don't see how the government can do anything. I think we just have to maybe have more doctors graduating, maybe open it up more.
I think with the way that you become a doctor in Canada, I think we're kind of misguided for that route, because it takes so long to become a doctor in the first place that's a huge reason that we have a big shortage of doctors. Myself, when I first graduated from high school, right now I'm 4 months and then I'm done my biology degree. I'm only 21, but that's what I'm studying in university. And at first I was doing biology because I was interested in chiropractic, but then when I actually calculated how long I'd have to go to university for, I dropped that idea, and now I want to become a high school biology teacher instead. So med school is the way that we do it in Canada. I really truly believe that we do it in the wrong way. It takes way too long. The fact you have to get an undergrad first and then go for it. I think if we follow along the way that Europe does their design for med school, would be a lot more direct, and honestly would keep more of our med students in med school. Otherwise, a lot of students look at how much student loans you're going to take on and how long you're actually going to study before you get to practice as a doctor, and it draws them away from it. So I think that's changing the way that you become a doctor could really remedy that situation.
There's a lot of new immigrants that have been doctors in their home countries, but to come and become a doctor or a nurse within the Canadian system, they have to re-certify. And a lot of them don't have the money. They have to work in order to support the family that they've brought with them. And I think that is right there a huge problem that we're not allowing. We're asking these people to come, but we're telling them to be shoe shine men.
Perhaps the cost of becoming a doctor. I imagine it's what puts a lot of people away from it. It's a strenuous amount of work, and then to have that the debt afterwards for so long. Maybe to make the career more accessible, then we'd have an influx of doctors wanting, and then, you know, you'd have the more personnel. I bet the personnel is mostly the problem.
I think we need to, I mean, I was shocked when I found out in British Columbia that the average doctor is only $31 for each person that they see. That's what they're getting paid. So I think that needs to be remedied. We need to look at maybe a different way of offering care. I think we aren't using our nurse practitioners as we should. I think a lot of things that I make an appointment to see a doctor just to get a prescription refilled. For gosh sakes, just let me see the nurse practitioner, and that would free up doctors so they're not seeing. They're just not under so much pressure to get so many people in all the time. So I think we need to do a nurse practitioner and doctors in one office together. I think that would be a really good solution. And in that case, we need more nurses trained. So we need to open up and get more seats for nursing and try and make it a job that people want to do.
Oh, we've got to put more money into the health, the provincial health budgets. They just got to start hiring people back, and sort of put back save money by kind of putting back the community health centers. Like, there used to be more hospitals and they got consolidated, and that probably didn't help things. So there needs to be more distributed local healthcare so that people can find a doctor where they need it.
I'm not really sure how to do it. I've been out without a family doctor for over 2 years now, and sitting on waiting lists and calling whenever I can. And thankfully, I've finally got someone who's willing to take me on, but still haven't met them yet, so we'll see. But to solve it, I think there needs to be an increase in the number of students that are coming out of our medical schools, and an increase in a way to keep our families, like our doctors and our family doctors, here, because you can make a lot more going to the States, and it's not that difficult to go down as a doctor. So if you can, there's got to be a way to keep them here.
I live in Taiwan right now. What they usually do is doctors would spend 2 years and they'd work at the hospital for a very, very low wage to get their, I don't know, what would you call it, in-house experience, yeah, and then they could go out and start out their own practice, but they got to do 2 years first. And you're right, it's almost hilarious seeing these doctors from India and China, and they're great doctors. They've got their degrees there, but Canada won't accept their degrees, right? At least that's how I understand it. So yeah, let them be doctors right away.
Well, I think the problem dates back maybe 20 years ago, when it was actually, I think, the Liberal Party at the time cut or limited enrollment in medical schools. And so therefore, if you don't fund students going into medical school, you don't fund doctors. So I think that's maybe part of the problem. And certainly the problem is now fixing it, not only maintaining, but maybe increasing enrollment in medical schools.
And it should be easy transition between the other country to Canada when the doctors come from. Well, it's my personal experience. One of my friend who was doctor in India, he is driving taxi in Canada when his talent is could have been used for overcome this shortage.
What is the maximum amount of time allowed between federal elections in Canada? Is it 3 years, 5 years, or 7 years? The answer: 5 years. The Constitution Acts of 1867 and 1982 set the maximum time between federal general elections in Canada at 5 years. The exception would be in the event of real or apprehended war, invasion, or insurrection. But prime ministers and provincial premiers are free to call an election anytime they please if it's within that 5-year time span when the last one was called. We live in a time where climate change has become a major concern, not only in this country, but around the world. With extreme weather events seemingly happening more often across the country, many Canadians feel it will only get worse unless we take concrete action to reverse things before it's too late. So we ask Canadians if the choices they make every day have any emphasis on keeping our environment clean for future generations. Our question: how much does the environment influence your daily decisions?
A lot. I think about it. even just watering plants and things like that. I think about if I have a shower, I leave the bathtub. I'm lucky I have a bathtub in there, and then I haul that water out and I water my plants with it. I think about if I'm walking past a sports field and I see someone's left a bottle of water there, I take it home and pour it on a plant and recycle the bottle because it was left there. So I think about that. I think about, because I enjoy camping and hiking, and I think about trying to be less impactful and using my bike more. I mean, I drive, yes, but I think more people need to think about what they're driving, when they're driving, and we need to become less dependent on oil, gas, etc. Less packaging would also be a good one.
We tried to limit our be responsible with our foods, not have food waste. We tried to drive. We chose to live downtown, so we don't have to commute from the suburbs. We can walk to a lot of the places we have to go to. We do love traveling, and we're wrestling with that right now. The carbon footprint involved with traveling and air travel is huge. So we have some more work to do.
I tend to worry about that and making sure that I'm not becoming a part of the problem. So I compost, which is environmentally friendly. I grow plants, which are environmentally friendly. So I think that's my only ability to contribute.
It's not getting any better. It's only getting exponentially worse. We're not going to have an environment to live in. So it should be more in front of my mind. The most I do is recycle, and it's pathetic. There should be much more to be done. They talk about the straws being an issue. That's just a joke. That's just go look over here and feel like you're doing better about straws, but there's way more issues that you could be focusing on.
But that's one of the reasons why I give up the car, the costs, and all those kinds of things. I'm not a big fan of the oil and gas and the further expansion. So I ride this. I've been involved with bike clubs for many, many years and all those kinds of things. So on other fronts, I just live very cheaply, and I think we all really have to change how we live and do as many things as we can with the environment in mind.
That one I think is influential and affected by where I live, because when I'm in Victoria, it's a really green community. So everything is much more simplified. Recycling and everything is a really big focus in that community. So living in Victoria for the 8 months of the year, you recycle everything and you compost everything and you're really driven towards the environment. And I mean, I'm a cyclist every day when I'm there. I don't bring my car with me. So basically everything I'm doing is a really green focus when I'm in Victoria. But then when I'm here in the Okanagan, we're not as conscious of the environment, and I'm commuting every day to work and to the gym and all that. So I'm definitely using a lot more fossil fuels when I'm here, and recycling is not nearly as refined as it is in Victoria. We're much more focused on just throwing things in the garbage here in the Okanagan. So I think it's actually the biggest way to ameliorate the situation with the environment and really get communities to be more focused on the environment is simplifying it.
I walk all over the place. I take the bus. I do public transportation myself, or I will walk to the destination I need to get to.
I think citizens are, very well committed to keep the community or keep the environment clean. So that's one of the best things I love about living in Canada, that people are so used to keep their surroundings clean, and they care for environment. They preserve their natural parks, anything we can talk about. So that's one of the best thing about Canadians.
We try and do, as a family, we try and do no plastic bags. We try and bring bags with us. We don't use straws that they hand out. We try and bring our own straws, bring like a little lunch pack type of thing.
It does, but it's very much a long-term thing. As opposed to the climate that's happening, that's really not reflected by climate change. Climate change is a long-term effect, and the world, the climate's always been changing. So it affects my longer-term policies of not pollution and not destroying the environment. But short-term, there's really the fluctuations that we see are just fluctuations, and they're not really impacted by that. So just try to save energy. Just try to have a clean environment.
It actually influences me quite a bit. I sold my car. I walk everywhere. I don't, as much as possible, I use public transit. So I think that encouragement to use those things and to invest more into those things is probably a really important thing. I spent many years in Europe, so that kind of influenced my ability to do that and to understand that. And also just, it really affects me just in like choices that I make. I try as much as possible to shop local, get rid of those kinds of things, but I think major changes need to be made on much larger levels, not at my individual level isn't necessarily going to be making that big of a difference.
Recycling is a big part that my family and I are in. We recycle everything we can at schools. We've been making it a big part. We have clubs, stuff like that. Batteries, we've learned how to recycle those. We've kind of all just been taking steps to, especially recycling. Recycling seems to be the big part.
Again, just trying to make better choices, less fuel consumption.
During election campaigns, political parties and, of course, politicians make a slew of promises in hopes of winning your support. And oftentimes, it works in their favor. But making promises is one thing, and following through on those promises is another. So we sent our cameras out to ask how a political party of any stripe can get you on board at election time. Our question:
what would it take for a political party to get your vote?
I think that addressing a lot of the social inequities that we do face, and actually taking action. So a lot of it is, yes, we're saying that we're going to do these things, we're saying we're going to make these changes, but actually seeing them come to fruition seems to not necessarily be happening very much. And that's just going to spend money, and that's okay. Like, we need to be spending more on green infrastructure and green industrialization, and hopefully decreasing our impact and our want for oil and fossil fuel usage and stuff.
Just to be sensible and take a middle ground, nothing really crazy, the Conservatives say crazy stuff out on the one side, the Liberals and NDP do crazy stuff on the other side to try to get votes. It's just stay in the middle, be reasonable, be sensible, and just be reasonable and be sensible and take a middle ground. Nothing too crazy.
If they're trying to be proactive about changing things, or if they've got good values, hopefully they can carry that out into their term. That'd be nice.
Oh, well, right now, they have to say they're going to get rid of the mandates and never bring them back, because that was ineffective and actually counterproductive. It actually hurt people.
You mean the COVID mandates?
The COVID mandates, that's right, yeah. Those were just plain wrong and bad policy. They didn't work.
We have to keep our country intact. We have to keep our social services programs intact. And we cannot let American-style politics seep through our country.
So, I mean, a government or a political party that will have environment concerns, that will have concerns for the people, for especially people who are struggling for an existence, because there are quite a lot of people that are in that position. There are quite a few people who enjoy a much higher standard of living than others, and frankly, they should, that level of person should be in a position to help the government as well, the government to start with, but a government that will advocate for rights for the people that are struggling would be the right thing to do.
I don't really know. I don't really know that any of the parties are that different.
Healthcare, reasonable managing of the pandemic, generally how we live day to day.
For me, I don't know. I feel like the younger generation is very strong on the green, living green, and affordability for school and for living. It feels like the cost for living has gone up for us, and like buying a house seems very out of reach. Doing anything on your own unless you're just working 24/7 doesn't make sense. I'm lucky enough to have parents who support me, but a lot of people don't, and they'd have to scrape together all of their funds just to get a decent education, get a job, and then to be broke the entire time anyways, because you can barely afford living. So I just want them to change how the system works, the education system, how expensive schooling is, and how you need a degree to get anything worthwhile. But yeah, you need to have so much money to get into a proper university.
We need the money spent on us. We're the ones that are giving them the money, and I think they have to start realizing it's not their money. Right? Spend it where it affects the citizens that live here. Right? The senior citizens on fixed incomes, and yet you're giving child tax benefit, which is tax-free. So somebody who has children, yes, they have a very difficult time, but so do the senior citizens. And their money is not tax-free. OAS and CPP is not tax-free. And I think things like that need to change. The balance of our seniors to our young people, right? That's a big part.
When I look at political parties when an election comes around, I usually just acknowledge the platforms. I'm less driven towards the personal opinions of the politicians themselves and who they are, and I'm more driven just towards the platforms. If I can look at a platform and see that it protects my values on a pretty simplified level, like let's say I'm really driven towards the environment, or dropping of gas prices, or more money towards, they were putting money towards people that were buying electric cars. So any politician that would be willing to put in place drops on electric car prices, man, I'd vote for him, because that's something that I'm literally going to be investing in at the end of the summer. So just things that are affecting my life at the moment.
They have to care about the environment. That's number one for me. And we have to care about people, and we have to try and figure out how to fight the me culture that we have. Everybody's so selfish about their own needs and wants, and we have to have a political power that is willing to try and fight that.
Oh, I think related to your last question, I definitely think the environment where there's some of the parties don't want to talk about it. I think some of them do talk about it, but it's not sincere. So a longer-term vision, I think, is the problem that I see, that we're in this 4-year cycle, and any gains and changes to be made with respect to environment, it's going to take more than 4 years, and you're not going to see immediate benefits. So yeah, I think a government that looks to the long term and has a plan and works proactively to it.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.